All right, today is Monday, June 6th. Getting closer to summer. All right, I have come down. I'm coming down with some sort of cold, some sort of sickness. Down with the sickness. Wow. Little drowning pool throwback. All right, delirium's kicking in. So symptoms have shown up just this morning, and it should make for an interesting alternative video from the more recent material that I've been covering. Okay, so let's jump into sickness from my point of understanding here and now, after what I've learned over the last few years. So what is being sick? We can look at that from a few different vantage points. Let's see if we can't ultimately come away with a, if not better, at least newer working model from which to inspect and analyze in hopes of getting better, healing ourselves. So I've heard other people express sickness by changing the pronunciation of the word disease and hyphenating it as dis-ease, a state in which you are no longer in ease, no longer in well-being. Typically what we associate as being sick, and obviously we see it as a scale, a range, right? You got cold, flu, all the way up to cancer and heart disease as extreme forms of disease or sickness. But what most people focus on or interpret the sickness to be is typically through the lens of the symptoms, how they're feeling. Oh yeah, I'm sick. I got a, runny nose, cough, fever, achy joints, on up to, my organs hurt, etc., etc. It is my understanding at this point, and I'm no doctor, just someone that is trying to look at things from alternative perspectives. It is my understanding at this point that what we understand to be the symptoms is kind of the end of the program. I'm going to use the word program kind of interchangeably with the word virus to connote or suggest whatever it is that is afflicting someone. And I like the transference of the word program kind of in the way that you think of computer program, computer virus. Something's a little janky with the software. Whether or not you actually believe in viruses and germ theory and terrain theory, we're just going to set that aside. So the physical symptoms that manifest, my current understanding, is that this is kind of the towards the end of what is actually afflicting you. That you've got some virus, some bad software, some program that's been downloaded or uploaded, however you want to think of it. One being intentional, maybe the other being unintentional, or subconscious versus conscious. And the body has done what it can. The body and the mind has done what it can to rid itself of that program or virus. And it's not having full success, so you end up expressing this dis-ease through some of the healing modalities that the body starts to manifest, and we would call these the symptoms, right? Let's make that real simple. When you cut yourself and it swells up and it inflames, it's in the healing process, even though the inflammation itself would be indicative of a symptom, right? So it might be uncomfortable to experience these symptoms, but invariably they're trying to do their job. As most of us know, and probably people that are paying attention to what I'm putting out there, Big Pharma, as it is termed, which would be the industry at large that pretends that it's in the business of health, but everyone's in the business of business, which is understood as the business of money, vis-a-vis extracting it from you, and also some control thrown in there. Anyway, their focus is to pander to symptoms and never really get at a root cause. All right, it's getting kind of wordy, but it's worth expressing all this so that we can dive into it. So, as I'm at this stage in my understanding, after having listened to numerous people, doctors, psychologists, etc., discuss their understanding of what creates disease, where it originates from, how it is transferred. Again, we can use the word upload or download to bridge this idea of virus and programs. Maybe how it mutates, also how it grows or is diminished, right? How you heal it or how it controls you. All right, so you wake up and you're getting a cold, you're in dis-ease, you're getting sick, right? You reach for whatever, Robitussin, Theraflu, whatever. And these are, to their credit, they're mitigating the biophysical effects of the symptoms, right? Your headache goes away to a degree. You're able to function at work. Really, they're masking the symptoms in so much that you're not feeling them, but they're not fixing them. But they buy you some time. Now, are most people making the most of their time and trying to actually suss out the root cause? Probably not. So that's what we're here to talk about. So now when I exhibit symptoms, I sit back and say, okay, what's going on here? Now, there's myriad different theories out there as far as where these virus programs originate, how they transfer, how you upload, download them. Let's just look at a few. You could say, someone sneezed and I got the germ, and it landed on me and I inhaled it, and then that excited something in my body. I'm not focusing on that version of transferability. Not even sure I believe in that anymore. However, I do believe in the general idea of what that is trying to express. Remember, I've made mention that so much of what is told to us is, they're lies, but they're usually a contortion or an alteration of the truth. Often I like to use the word that it's an inversion of it. So it's gonna kind of look like a duck and quack like a duck, but it's an inverted duck, however you would say that. It's a cud, I don't know. Anyway, so this idea of transmissibility or transference, maybe that doesn't exist with the virus as we know it, sneeze. But in terms of being able to plant an energetic program, an idea that would create disease, and I know that sounds far-fetched, but we have just witnessed what fear will do to people on a large scale, and fear may ultimately be the most effective, if not most prolific, weapon that is used against us. So here is an example of what a mind virus is, right? You don't have to think like, what, they uploaded ones and zeros in binary code, and no. You can think of a program or a virus as an idea that is implanted in your mind that then invokes or evokes, I'm not sure in this case, an emotion, and that emotion can change your biophysical state. If you remain stressed out from fear for a long period of time, you're not going to feel well. Okay, you see where I'm going with this? All right. So I sit back when I get these symptoms and I say, all right, what have I been going through lately? What have I been processing? Now, I have at my disposal my conscious mind, usually on a good day. And within that, we would have what we call our memory, our long-term and short-term. So in this case, I'll start with my short-term memory and say, what have I been experiencing? What have I been subjected to? Interpersonal relationships, internal stress, work stress, outside experiences, etc., etc. Sit back and try to think, because I'm wondering what has triggered, possibly on a subconscious, or more than likely on a subconscious level, but my conscious mind has access to some of this subconscious within my ability to remember or recall events that have happened. Now, there is a theory out there, and I'm a big fan of it, and I'm just going to kind of boil it down, that trauma can be stored within an individual for long periods of time and manifest later. And also that trauma can be stored and, I hate to use the word transferred again, show up in later generations within a bloodline or a family line, right? Now, I don't have the specifics on which types of traumas would lead to which kind of diseases, although there's probably some sort of map out there related to that. My friend Marie, who I've made mention before, who was a practitioner in the field of biodecoding, really works on this level, in which it suggests that trauma, which would be a type of trigger event that would create a disease in the body, the trauma is stored somewhere in the body, perhaps on a cellular level. I don't want to misquote her on this. And it will eventually, if not rectified in some manner, either through conscious work or the subconscious being able to go in and clean it out, depending on the individual, it will manifest itself as disease later on down the road. Very interesting line of study and health work that I'm a big fan of. And I have absolutely seen some overlays and theories with other folks that I have talked about that I have briefly scratched the surface on, and I usually group them together. So if you were to look into the works of Joe Dispenza in regards to epigenetics, and then also Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, if you want to learn more about that kind of idea. All right, so I wake up, I'm recognizing, cold, flu-like symptoms, etc. So I say, okay, what's been happening? Now, the conscious mind is recognizing how I feel or how I'm going to feel just on past experiences. What happens when I get sick. And I'm not here to dismiss the treating or mitigating or managing of the physical symptoms. That only makes sense. If something doesn't feel well, try to make it feel a little better. But recognize that is not in and of itself the cause. Secondly, and very importantly, use the cleanest, most beneficial, natural, organic type of remedies as possible to assuage your physical symptoms. So instead of grabbing Dayquil or NyQuil, go to a supplement store, go to a health store, consult with them, ask them what they've got. I'm taking a myriad different vitamins, minerals, and whatever else my wonderful girlfriend supplied me with from our local health food store in order to manage the symptoms. But what's really important here is sussing out and sorting out the root cause. Okay? So, I am not particularly skilled in accessing the deeper recesses of my subconscious, but what I did do is I laid down to rest after I had taken care of the most important things this morning. And barring some other tool at my disposal, I simply closed my eyes, focus on my breathing, and then engage in different mantras, idioms, phrases, however you want to think of it, with repetition, with the breath, in order to not only calm myself, but perhaps to prompt something in the subconscious. So such phrases are calling upon myself, my higher self, to find strength, to find health, to help me discern what is happening, to help me resolve the root cause, to focus on rebuilding my immunity. And these are just simple things as like, I'm breathing in, and as I exhale, I might say out loud or in my head, I seek to increase my health and well-being, and repeating that. And then changing over to kind of a probing question of, asking my internal self, my higher self, help me find the cause of this issue. That's not the exact words I used, but something to that effect. And then I ended up fading in and out of kind of a sleep-like state, whether it is sleep-like state, a hypnagogic state, which is a cool place to be as well, because that in between sleep and awake is an area or a time where supposedly you can access other dimensions. And again, this is happening somewhere within your mind, right? Not exactly your head, but somewhere within your mind, in this bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. If that's hard for you to grasp at, think of it as like being able to access your dreams, because you certainly believe in the dream state. You've had dreams. You're not quite sure how you get into there, but you accept that it's some sort of image either being uploaded or downloaded or created on the fly while you're asleep. So yeah, I mean, you can probably accept that there's something, whether you want to call it dimension or realm, where thoughts are existing outside of your conscious self. So think of that as a way to understand what the hypnagogic or hypnagogic state is. In this 45 minutes to an hour that I got to lay there, I was not struck immediately with a particular answer, but it's a way through repetition in hopes of instigating some sort of better knowing of what's going on. Because what's the real goal here? I want to sort out, I want to get to the bottom of what is causing whatever is then manifesting my symptoms, so that I can feel better, function better, and lead a better life. So I started to think about my recent experiences, and I'm not recollecting anything in my conscious short-term memory of something that has been particularly distressful or stressful, damaging, difficult, more difficult than usual. Although sometimes it can be something that you normally handle, and for whatever reason, it's triggering something out this time. All right, so that's an option on the table. Depending on the type of disease, again, we have the option of a problem showing itself later in your life or later down in the family tree, the bloodline, right? My understanding is the greater the trauma, the more significant the disease that shows up. Okay, so I'm not going to know that by just laying there. But again, I am calling upon myself to try to access perhaps those memories, if it's not on a conscious way, on a cellular way, in order to rectify that affliction. All right, so that's an option. Another option is that I'm being plagued with some sort of psychic energy, and I know that sounds a little hooey to those of you that haven't been reading and researching the people that I have been recently, but just in the same way that we know that fear is one of the most vindictive tools used against us in terms of creating disease within our minds, which manifests into our bodies and destroys us from the inside out. And we can accept, it's probably most of you at this point, that there exists, through all my ramblings, there exists something in what we'll call the invisible realm. And we know that, again, just by looking at the visible light spectrum, what we see versus the entirety of the light spectrum, when we can scientifically come to terms with the fact that there's much that we do not see. All right. So this jump to psychic energy would suggest something of the kind where an entity may specifically be targeting me or targeting an individual and creating disease within them. So I have been going down the path of learning much more in terms of magic. I have not really engaged in practice yet. I have been fully warned on what can happen should you call up entities that are really anything outside of you yourself, your higher self, and your connection to higher source, to really focus on that, and more or less buyer beware to anyone that seeks to engage with an entity of any kind beyond itself, because it's very, very hard to validate not their authenticity, their positivity, whether they're good or bad. So to shy away from them. So I have not yet conducted any practice or ritual, but I have sat with the ideas of engaging in the circle of the magician. And we'll get into more of that much later. It probably sounds much more Hogwarts than it really is. Magic is a practice that is occurring on a daily basis, and we're surrounded by it. Anyway, so that is yet another option. Anyway, I'll probably tie this up here because I don't have a specific conclusion, as I haven't sorted out what is actually causing this. But hopefully it is giving you, the individual, some new ideas, a new framework from which to analyze the next time you fall ill, and to not fall into the traps of not only just focusing in a physical way on treating the symptoms, but really having a new perspective of what might be causing the problem or the disease or the illness or the sickness, and give you a new option on how to approach it mentally. I will say that in parallel or in correlation, not necessarily causation, but probably, with my improved relative sobriety and cleaning up my life, that when I get sick, it is way more manageable now. The symptoms much shorter, easier to handle than when I was growing up, when I would get quite sick and for long periods of time, and the symptoms were very exacerbated, for 2-3 weeks at a time. And now when it happens, much, bouncing back a lot faster. And I think some of that is the inherent subconscious work that I've been involved with in opening these doors and layers of understanding of health, wellness, well-being, and working on myself, not just in the temporal realm here, but in a mental way, in a spiritual way, in an emotional way, because those all tie together. And here in this body is where the rubber meets the road, right? We can extrapolate and expand on all these likely possibilities of what's happening in the invisible, from your light body to your etheric body to 6D up to 12D, etc. But as far as you are concerned and I am concerned, I go to bed at night, I get up, I go to the bathroom, I eat food. Like, we are existing in this 3D planet, in this realm. And so when I don't feel well in a physical way, I do want to treat that. But I don't just want to treat the symptoms. I really want to understand the root cause. And all those invisible realms, so to speak, converge here in your conscious waking life as far as you're concerned. Like, this is a great starting point, because this is, you are because you think you are, right? I feel my hands. I recognize that I'm here, and we can work our way outward from the physical realm. Use that as a known, accepted starting point, but realize, because there's much more that surrounds you, there's likely much more to you that surrounds you, and you have to treat it in a holistic way. And because I've engaged in, a manner of knowledge and research and personal gnosis, I think a lot of that has to do with how my body naturally has shortened and truncated my colds, or whatever you want to call them, because my immune system has been enhanced on these other dimensions. And I've also treated my body, in the physical way, better in the last few years. All right, we'll leave it there. I'm going to go in, heat up some broth, and let you chew on that. See ya.